Good morning, students. Hope you're all doing well. Today we begin with a new topic called New Notions of Kingship. Now, before we proceed on with your NCERT or text material, whatever is given, actually, the thing is, the names of the dynasties given in this particular topic are sprinkled all over without giving any chronological reference. So what we'll do first, we'll try to establish a chronological sequence of all these dynasties which come after the Mauryas, okay, or which succeed the Mauryas, and then go on to establish what your textbook or NCERT actually wants to convey. Okay? So in the last lecture, we have already stated that the downfall of Mauryas began when Ashoka adopted his pacifist policies. That is, instead of conquering, he was more interested in preserving the empire and spreading his Dhamma, which was a code of conduct, so that his empire could be bound together. Then we also mentioned the fact that his successors which came later on were quite weak compared to the previous or the original three, that is Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusar or Ashoka, who had a lot of impetus to expand the frontiers of Mauryan Empire. So how does Mauryan Empire finally comes to its end? So the last ruler of Mauryan Empire, called Brihadrat, okay, he was assassinated by his own minister called Pushyamitra Sunga. This person, Pushyamitra Sunga, forms the next dynasty which comes after Maurya, that is called the Shunga dynasty. This Shunga dynasty is not reigning over a large empire like the Mauryas did, okay. It is basically confined to Magadh region, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Okay? But Maurya Empire covered a vast stretch of territory. So the other regions, they experience a political vacuum. There is a vacuum, there's a power vacuum. So whenever there is a vacuum, some or the other power will try to come and establish themselves there. Some of them may be powers which were actually present even during the Mauryas, but as soon as Mauryas declined, they got a chance to rebel and establish themselves as kingdoms or empires. And some of them would be beyond the frontiers of the Hindu Kush mountains, that is Afghanistan ke bhi beyond se. Okay? So one such empire that we know of during the Shunga time, so imagine Shunga is based in where? Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Magadh. Okay? One side it is there. Then in the central or the Deccan part of India, you have a new empire coming up at the same time. They were known as the Satavahanas. Okay? And on the northwestern part, if you remember clearly, this was the region where till the Indus River plain, you can say, was where Alexander had come to India. I mean, that is where he came, but he couldn't make inroads to India. So this region was one of his province, which was called Satrap during that time. Okay, so this province would send its revenue to the Greek nation or the Macedonia. But later on, this very province, which was there in the northwest, it declared its independence and became a separate kingdom known as Indo Greek kingdom or the Indo Greek dynasty, you can say. So they had obviously both Indian as well as Greek ties with them. That is why the name Indo Greek. उन लोग Indians and Greek के वंशज थे. So they are established in northwest. They were present even during the decline of Mauryas, and as soon as the Mauryan Empire ended, these Indo-Greek dynasty, they started to make inroads into India. So they were ruling the northwestern part of India. Okay, you can say Punjab, Haryana and that northwestern part. Central में क्या है? Central and Deccan में you have Satavahanas, whereas in the eastern part of Magadh, UP and Bihar, you have the Shunga dynasty. Now, as the time passed, even the Shunga dynasty did not hold this place for a very long time. It did not even last for 80 years, you can say. Or so they were supplanted by dynasties who are not very much relevant for our study material or study context. We will move to Indo Greeks. We'll move our attention to Indo Greeks. Once Indo Greeks established their dominance in the northwestern part of India, with later centuries, they were replaced by a tribe known as Shakas. Okay, the Shaka dynasty, which they say, which scholars say have come from Central Asia, or they are of Iranian descent. And after the Shaka dynasty, you have another dynasty coming into play. See, there is always a power struggle. Okay, they are always trying, one kingdom or one dynasty is always trying to overthrow or overcome one dynasty to establish themselves there. So even the Shaka dynasty, after a period of 1 century, you can say, was overpowered by कुशानाज. ओके, इसी कुशानाज में सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट रूलर है कनिष्क, एंड दे प्लेड द कुशाना डायनास्टी. दे एस्टैब्लिश देमसेल्व्स टिल मथुरा, यूपी तक आ गए थे. ओके, एंड इवन दे वर रूलिंग पार्ट्स ऑफ गुजरात एंड राजस्थान, एंड दे वर ऑल्सो रूलिंग पार्ट ऑफ अफगानिस्तान. सो इमेजिन, दिस इज द बॉर्डर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, अफगानिस्तान पाकिस्तान एरिया, एंड even till UP part. Okay, and the Kushana rulers, especially Kanishk, did a lot to embrace Buddhism and propagate it. We'll do this later. Finally, much later in the 4th century, after the decline of Kushanas, you can say there are many smaller kingdoms reigning at that point of time. There is no powerful kingdom until and unless the Gupta dynasty emerges in 4th century AD. So we'll look into this later. I hope this chronology is clear, that you had two successors of Mauryas. One you will call the native successors, ठीक है, जो हमारी ही जन्मभूमि से आए, हमारी मिट्टी से आए, and the others who came from beyond Central Asia. Okay, these were the Indo Greeks, the Sakas, and the Kushanas. Now let us focus into the kingdoms that existed in the South India. Now, the last time we spoke about South India was when we were talking about the megalithic culture that existed in the Deccan part. What was megalithic culture? It was basically talking about new modes of disposal of the dead, where large tombstones or megaliths, large stones, huge stones, were buried along with the dead. So when did this megalithic culture came to an end? We already spoke that around 1000 BCE iron was discovered. Later on, it took some time for iron to form its distributive network. So this distributive network was not only established in North India, it was even established in South India. So this is the time when South India enters into its metal age. Once it begins its metal age, it becomes much more adept at craft production, textile production, and various other things. When you are producing craft and textile, obviously the next logical step to do is to start trading. So they had inter-regional trade. The South India already had inter-regional trades into place. With this inter-regional trade coming into play, you had urbanization coming up. So South India mein, it's little bit different from North India. Instead of agriculture leading to urbanization, you have trade leading to urbanization. और trade को भी ऐसे agriculture ही support करता है, वो है background में. But here trade plays a very important part of urbanization. Trade was the main reason why urbanization came in South India. But when Maurya starts expanding the empire, they reach up till Karnataka. Okay, that means this even South India comes under the Mauryan Empire. But the very tip of South India, which is known as Tamilakam, okay, it is mentioned in your textbook. Make a note of it. Tamilakam comprised of present-day Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and part of Andhra Pradesh. So this region of Tamilakam was very stable and prosperous in itself. It was being ruled by chiefdoms, which later on became kingdoms. The three main chiefdoms of this Tamilakam were Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. These Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas became very powerful empires later on by themselves, and they were able to do this by controlling the maritime trade that existed. अब इन लोग trade relation दूसरे countries के साथ establish करना शुरू किया. You know they are at the coastal tip. Okay, they are at the tip of India. Both the sides they have coastal regions. So what they managed to do was they created very powerful navy. They had ships, okay, and they had trade routes extending till Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Jakarta, name it, not only on the eastern part but also in the western part to the Mediterranean and Rome. So it was trade which made them urbanized, these three regions. पहले inter-regional trade था, later on it became maritime trade. So they were ruled by chiefs. You don't have to know their names, but you have to keep this in mind that this chiefdoms which they had, these powerful chiefs, they were different from kingdoms, and this distinction is given in your book. It's just that these chiefs depended heavily on their own kinfolk or clan for carrying out administration. They depended on people to give voluntary tributes to them rather than imposing tax. And then this chief could have a lot of functions to perform, such as special rituals. He had to be the leader in the warfare. He even arbitrated disputes. Okay. Now, how do we get a whole lot of information about this Tamilakam region? So there is a very important source known as the Tamil Sangam texts. अब ये क्या है, संगम era क्या है? Let us talk about it a bit. The Sangam age, okay, actually iska you can scholars dispute this claim that many Tamil Sangam people who adhere to it say that you can trace the Sangam back to gods, but that is not true. Scholars say that the Sangam was an assembly of poets and kings, okay. So the poets and kings used to assemble at a particular place, and they used to write about not only the history or the polity, they even used to produce literature work. So these works explain how this regions or how this regions, Tamilakam region, how it functioned. This is one of the reasons, if you can think, even during modern day, that Tamil people are so not ready to accept Hindi as the national language, because they are very proud of their heritage. Tamil writing, okay, and Tamil literature is thousands of years old. It has a very long heritage behind it. And Hindi, when you think about it, or the Devanagari script, it developed much later. So how can you give up something that is yours and adopt something which is relatively new? So that's why they vehemently oppose it, although there's a little bit of political agenda behind it too. So you'll study about the little bit of this in your political science later on. Anyway, so this is the thing, these Tamil Sangam texts, they produced or they gave rich information. They were a rich source of information about these chiefs and chiefdoms that existed in the Tamilakam area. So we have not only the Tamilakam region, which was heavily dependent on trade, you even had the Satavahanas and the Shakas, which we spoke about in the first part of the lecture. Even these dynasties were very much dependent on long distance trade in order to maintain its stable revenue. But where do historians find a problem? When they try to trace the social origin of these dynasties. Place of origin to pata chal gaya, Satavahanas ka, it is, it was they were natives of India, and Shakas, they were Central Asian people who had supplanted the Indo Greeks. but social origin, that means उस caste hierarchy में where did these dynasties fit in, this became problematic. Okay, obviously shakas outsiders है, तो outsiders को कहाँ place करेंगे, that is a problem. Whereas Satavahanas, what was the problem with them? Some scholars say that this Satavahanas are the very same dynasties who were previously called Andhras, and these Andhra dynasty was written about in even in the Purana text. ठीक है, Puranas जिसको बोलते हैं. So how to place these dynasties in social context or social origin, it becomes a little bit difficult. But ये बात ज़रूर पता है कि once these dynasties acquired power, in order to maintain or legitimize their rule, they adopted various ways by which they can have a claim on the power. Now, one such thing which Satavahana did was they tried to trace their lineages to the sages mentioned in Hinduism. They tried to adopt gotras. तो इसका थोड़ा सा और हम लोग we'll do it in the next chapter. Don't worry. Okay. So we saw one of the ways to claim higher power was done by the Satavahanas, where they managed to establish the lineages to the great Vedic sages. Okay. Another way to do that was skip past the sages and directly start claiming their association with God. So this was done by a dynasty known as Kushana dynasty. Remember the Kushanas which we spoke about, which ruled parts of Central Asia and came up till northwest. They even had they came up till Mathura. So this dynasty managed to or claimed to be associated to gods or deities themselves. Now, why do you think this strategy worked? Remember what we did in the 11th standard? We spoke about theory of divine kingship. So when we say that a ruler wants to associate himself to God, or to say that they have a mandate from God, what they are trying to establish is that since I have a mandate from God, or since I am a child of God, the people or the other kingdoms should not revolt or rebel against me. ठीक है? So they are like full proofing their system. Okay, अपने dynasty को full proof रखने के लिए rebellion से this is a method they resorted to. So this method was not only used by the Kushanas, it was even used by the Chinese who called themselves sons of heaven. Remember even when we were doing Mongols, how Genghis Khan had spoken himself in terms of I am the wrath of God. So I have a mandate of God to rule all the oceans and all the territories. So in this way, in the very same way, even the Kushanas managed to claim such lofty titles such as son of God or Devaputra to indicate that they were associated to gods. बोलना एक बात है, अब इस बात को लोगों तक कैसे पहुंचाना है. ओके, कुछ विजुअल रिप्रेजेंटेशन होना चाहिए. बोल दिए, बात वहां खत्म नहीं हो गया. सो दिस विजुअल रिप्रेजेंटेशन वाज डन बाय these Kushanas built colossal statues or very huge statues of their king, okay, of their own king. Or when it came to the coins in circulation, what they managed to do was on one side they had minted the coin in such a way that one side will have the pictorial representation of the king, the Kushana ruler, and on the other side you had a god, okay, the picturization of a god on that coin. So it was like equating a god or a deity with a king. So this is the way by which Kushana was able to claim a much higher power, higher status or higher power in the eyes of the people that they were ruling. Okay, now let's skip or fast forward few centuries. In 4th century AD, finally you have a vast empire or state coming into existence known as the Gupta Empire. Okay, this empire was established by Sri Gupta, and the most famous ruler of this empire was Samudragupta. Fine. So a lot of information is not given about the administration of empire, but just keep in mind that this Gupta empire was very much decentralized in its approach. Rather than adopting a Mauryan policy of centralization of power, the Guptas adopted decentralization of power. So even the provinces or the villages had some form of autonomy. Okay. Now also remember, this Gupta empire was not as huge in as Mauryan empire in its territorial extent. Still, it is called the golden age in the Indian history because of the kind of works that was produced in each and every field. In art or literature, you can say you have renowned names such as Kalidas writing his prominent works. In the field of mathematical and sciences, you have Aryabhat coming in and giving his theories. And then in fields of surgery also, a lot of developments were taking place. Okay. When it comes to administration of this empire, we already said that it was very much decentralized. But outside the frontiers of the empires, you have these small kingdoms, okay, much smaller kingdoms than that of Gupta empire, who the Gupta ruler managed to subjugate, but they did not bring them under their fold. So these local rulers or rajas were known as the Samants. So it was a very much like a feudal relation. Remember feudalism, which we have studied in 11th standard. So how does feudal relation work? That this Samant or the local ruler, he owed his loyalty to the Gupta ruler, and the Gupta ruler promised to protect this Samant in exchange of the tribute that this Samant would pay to him annually. And these Samants had a lot of autonomy when it came to ruling their own kingdom or ruling their own territory. They could administrate it according to their wishes. They could make their own laws. So they were only dependent on the Gupta empire when it came to providing them with resources or army at the time of need. The entire vassal relationship worked, or feudal relationship worked even here. So what happened when Gupta period was on decline? Eventually each and every empire that you know, it has to come to its decline. It cannot remain forever. So when Gupta empire went on its decline, it is these powerful Samants, okay, they were able to overpower and take whatever was left of this empire. Now, what are the sources to study about the history of Gupta rulers? Okay, obviously literary work bhi hai, but the one which we'll be focusing is known as Prashasti. Okay, तो प्रशस्ति वर्क को ही ब्रेक करने से पता चलेगा साउंड कर रहा है कि प्रशंसा करने वाला है. So these prashastis, which were like inscriptions, spoke about the rulers which were patronizing these prashasti. So one such very famous prashasti which is given in your book is Prayag Prashasti, also known as Allahabad Pilla. Even now you just know the name of Allahabad is now Prayagraj, so we say Prayag Prashasti. So it was composed by the court poet of Samudragupta known as Harisena, who gave information about how the Gupta empire or Gupta rule functioned under Samudragupta. Samudragupta was also known as, he was portrayed as a very valiant hero in this inscription. Okay, and even later historians call him to be somewhat like Napoleon of India and all. So this Prayag Prashasti, praising this his or her king, you can say, cannot be taken as an accurate historical source, because you know it has a lot of flattery written in it rather than the accurate facts. But then also it is an important source to study the Gupta empire. Okay, this is it for today. Go through this and do your assignments. Okay.